Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you're joining us today in today's live lecture coming to you from Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University. Today's date is Nkwo Market Day in the Igbo lunar calendar, and 9/25/2025 in the foreign Roman Catholic calendar. And remember why we are giving you both dates is to let you know that we have our own calendar before the arrival of the colonial masters. Yes, we do. And before we continue, we have to make some changes. Let us see what is going on with one of our, what's going on here. Give me a minute. Let me see what's going on with this device. That's what's going on with it. 1 minute, let's see. And so it's like one of my devices is not working, so we have to continue. We have to continue with this lecture, this important lecture. After, okay, it's not working, so let's continue with the lecture. And so today's date is Nkwo Market Day in the Igbo lunar calendar, and 9/25/2025 in the foreign Roman Catholic calendar, because the lunar calendar is the calendar left behind by our ancestors. And remember, at Nkolo Mahadum, we always advise you to use your naturally given common sense, which we call Akonuche in Igbo language. And we have also let you know that we are set up to decolonize your mind, to provide you with the correct information, the correct education, than the misinformation and the miseducation and misdirection from our colonial masters and their stooges and their institutions in our land. And so we are asking you to join us, subscribe, like, comment, and share. We are live on YouTube, we are live on Facebook, we are live on Twitter, and we are live on TikTok. So join this lecture and you will be glad that you did. The title of today's lecture is "The American Empire is in Trouble and President Trump is trying to save it." The American empire is in big trouble and the President Trump is trying to save it. And our question is, Will President Trump succeed? That is the question we want you to answer at the end of this lecture. And we want to begin by letting you know that America regained her independence from Britain in 1776. And thereafter, as the continent continues to grow, they have what they call the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine opposes European colonialism. The Monroe Doctrine of 1823 opposes European colonialism in the Western Hemisphere. The Western Hemisphere is referred as North America and South America. North America is United States and Canada. And then South America is another big, large continent, which included countries like Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Bolivia, to mention a few. But it's a very large continent. So this Monroe Doctrine prevents Europeans from having access to those territories. So that gave America a very big mass land. In addition to that, the American empire began to grow also after the Spanish-American War. The Spanish-American War took place from April to August 1898. When Americans defeated the Spanish, and then the Treaty of Paris was signed. Soon after that treaty was signed, America took over where you call Puerto Rico, Philippines, Guam, and Cuba as new territories. The credit for this particular information goes to New World Encyclopedia. And so with the Monroe Doctrine and the America defeating the Spanish in the Spanish-American War, that again gave America more lands, more vast lands, and power and influence. In addition, the First and Second World Wars, First World War from 1914 to 1918, and Second World War from 1941 to 1945, of which America became victorious in those wars, also gave her enormous influence and economic power around the world. Now, thereafter, come the New World Order. The New World Order, called the unipolar, the globalist, the One World Order, actually started in 1991 after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. The fall of the Berlin Wall, the wall that divided Germany into two, the eastern part belonging to Russia and the western part belonging to Europe. And that wall fell to reunite both the eastern part and the western part as one country now in Germany. So after the fall of that wall, that was when the New World Order started in 1991. And remember, the American dollar is one of the weapons by which the empire was making money and exerting her influence around the world. And we want to let you know that the dollar that you are hearing today was first printed in 1914. The American dollar was first printed in 1914. However, in 1944, before the end of the Second World War, more than 700 representatives from 44 nations traveled to Washington, to Mount Washington Hotel, where they made the dollar the reserve currency. By making the dollar the reserve currency, that is why many countries put their reserves in the United States, in US dollar, in the United States. And so that was why the dollar became the world currency, being used to settle all international trades, being used to pay for oil trades and other international trades. So the dollar became the world currency, the reserve world currency. That is why you also see the sanctions that America sometimes imposes on countries when you disagree with them. They have also frozen monies belonging to many countries because they have their reserve in America, in the dollar. And so these and other things were what made America what it is today, an American empire. It is an American empire that we are all living under today. And so you see American power everywhere. That is why you see the war in Iraq, the war in Libya, the one in Afghanistan, the bombing of Yugoslavia. You see their influence in Georgia. You see or hear about NATO expansion everywhere. East to Russia, that eventually is causing the current Ukraine-Russian war. This is American power. You see many American military bases, about 800 military bases scattered around the world. You see regime changes. They conduct regime changes when you disagree with them, when you do not agree with what they want against their interests. They will do a regime change, take you out of power and put somebody else that will do what they want. You see a lot of sponsor of terrorism. You know, America was the one that was initially sponsoring Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And so they have tremendous power across the world as an empire. So the empire have been successful, but today the empire is now falling. It is falling. That is why you see Trump fighting and working to see if it can save the empire. All the things that Trump is doing is to see whether he can save the empire. Because the previous government didn't, nobody, is feeling the heat like right now. In the previous government of Biden, the problem was not exposed. But with Trump, the problem was exposed, and everybody is aware that America have problem and Trump is working to fix it. That is where we are. So a lot of people have been saying that the way Trump is doing it is not good. The way he's doing it is not good. But some of the things that he has done is the tariff war. You see, anytime you wake up these days, you hear about tariff. Americans try to push their tariff to India, to Syria, to Laos, to Switzerland, Algeria. In fact, more than 40 countries, the Trump administration have imposed their tariff on. Why are they imposing this tariff on these countries? America currently is not a manufacturing superpower. America is not a manufacturing superpower. They are in financial and service industries. That's what America is engaging in. But America has big industrial base. The economy is somehow good. And because of the power of the dollar, that is why a lot of countries are exporting into America. A lot of countries are exporting into America to make the dollar, because the dollar is the world reserve and most popular currency. So when you are exporting your product from another country into America and selling it, you'll be making money. That is why Trump is imposing that tariff on those countries, even though the tariff will be paid by Americans. A lot of people have argued that the tariff Trump is imposing will be paid by Americans. It will be paid by Americans. But on the other hand, it will hurt the other country when they pay that 15% or 50% or 30% tariff charged on their goods before they enter into the American market. And so these are the things. So when you hear all this tariff, is for America to survive. Because even Germany, you know, today survives from the vehicles they are selling in America. The most expensive, luxurious vehicle in America today, some of them are German vehicles and others. And so many countries like Germany, even France, imports wines, all kinds of drinks. Exports all kinds of wines and drinks into America. So all of them exports one thing or the other into America. That is why he is using the tariff measure to see if he can rescue the empire that is in trouble. Another means Trump has been trying to save the empire is to cut Americans' involvement in the Ukraine war. Remember, when Biden was there, you always hear Congress approving millions of money to Ukraine. Always they're approving both millions and dollars to Ukraine. But since Biden came, he stopped that continuous approval of money to Ukraine. And now he has resorted to selling weapons to Europeans to pay America. Because before, it was America in NATO, leading NATO, that is bringing all the weapons and most of the money that they're using to fight wars. But now Trump has stepped back, passing the expenses to the Europeans, and thereby selling weapons to them, to the Europeans, to pay America to continue the war in Ukraine. That is what Trump is doing now, to cut costs, because the empire is in trouble. American empire is in trouble. Another means by which Trump is trying to save the empire, you have heard about the Department of Government Efficiency. Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which was formerly headed by Elon Musk. And that agency was set up to save America about $1 trillion in expenses, in government expenses and waste, what they classify as waste. So these are some of the measures, plus the removal of illegal immigrants is also another measure that they are using, the removal of illegal immigrants. Because now about 2 million illegal immigrants, those that are illegal, have been removed since Trump became the president. Many people have argued and saying, what is the illegal immigrants doing? Why is he after them? But hey, He's doing what he feels is the best thing for him to do. He's doing all he can. I mean, not everybody will agree with his policies. We at Nkola Mahadum don't agree completely with his policies. But as the president, he is trying to save the America empire that is in trouble. That is what he's doing. And our question is, will he succeed? And the answer, our own answer at Nkola Mahadum is that he will succeed to an extent. Trump will succeed to an extent, to the extent that he is in power. When after the election, after he leaves office, the next president that will replace him may not continue with all this, his tariffs, his cutting on wars in Ukraine, his cutting of governmental expenses and waste, and removal of illegal immigrants. So he is successful as long as he is in office, because it's like nobody is stopping him from all these policies that he's pursuing. And so this lecture is very important in that we want you to know that the American empire, America as you know it, is an empire. It's been an empire for a very long time. But today, that empire is in trouble. The American empire is in trouble, and President Trump is trying to save it. And we are saying, we are asking you, will Trump succeed? And then we began by telling you that America got their independence from Great Britain. They declared independence in 1776. And since then, they inherited, they got a very big land. The lands they got from wars by defeating the indigenous people here, defeating Mexico, and so many, wars. And then, according to Wikipedia, the Monroe Doctrine of 1823 opposes European colonialism in the Western Hemisphere. And the Western Hemisphere means North America and South America. When you hear about North America, it's America as a country and Canada. Those are North America. But South America is another big area, another big continent, where you see countries like Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, Bolivia. I think Paraguay is there also, and so many other countries. It's a large area. They prevented the Europeans from coming over there. They drove them away. And America, took them. All gave America big power and economic influence. And then American defeat of the Spanish in the Spanish-American War from April to August 1898, after the Treaty of Paris. The American people defeated the Spanish people. They fought. And that war from April to August 1898 led to the Treaty of Paris. And after they signed that treaty, America took over Puerto Rico, Philippines, Guam, and Cuba from the Spanish. And the credit for this information goes to New World Encyclopedia. And remember the First and Second World War. First and Second World War from 1914 to 1918, and Second World War from 1941 to 1945. And America, being a winner in those wars, also gave her tremendous power and influence to control the world. And then there come the New World Order. The New World Order, which we call the unipolar order or the globalist order or one world order actually started in 1991 after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. You know that after the Second World War, Germany was divided into two, one part to Russia and one part to Germany, called Western Germany. Then in 1989, that was when the wall fell to reunite both the eastern part of Germany and the western part of Germany together as one country. So after the fall of that Berlin Wall and the reunification, that was when America said, oh, I am now the only bird in the tree. I am now the only bird on the tree. I'm the most superpower in the world. And so that is what you have to know, that today we are living in American empire. Then the American dollar is one of the tools, is one of the equipments being used by America to prosper. And the dollar was first printed in 1914. However, in 1944, more than 700 representatives from 44 nations traveled to Mount Washington Hotel in Washington, where they made the dollar the reserve currency. The reserve currency means this is where it's like a bank where countries put their money, because the dollar is the only money that is used to settle international trade. The dollar is the money being used to settle international trade today with the American SWIFT system. The American SWIFT system is an exchange system whereby before you send money from one country to the other, it has to pass through that system. And so the dollar is one of the tools of the empire to operate or oppress people. Because if you have heard, when they sanction some countries, when they threaten you, if you are against our interests, we will sanction you. We will not deal with you. We will not give you access to the dollar. So both the dollar and the geographical, that is land ownership, that America has are some of the things that gave her all the power, all the influence that they have around the world. That's why we all witnessed the war in Iraq, the war in Libya, Afghanistan, the bombing of Yugoslavia, the political crisis in Georgia, NATO expansion to the east of Russia that now led to the Ukraine war. America having about 800 military bases around the world. Why are they having those military bases? They are having those military bases so that if you don't agree, they use that military to overthrow you. And regime changes, they do conduct regime changes. If any government is against their interest, they will change that government. And they also train, sponsor terrorism. America is is one of the countries that first sponsored Al-Qaeda. When you hear about Al-Qaeda, they started with American money. And also ISIS also started with American money. And so America is very, very, very influential. They are the one controlling most of the trades, most of the policies and in the world before the arrival of BRICS nations. So when you see them fighting against the BRICS nations and trying to prevent the BRICS, is because the BRICS nations are finding alternative means away from the dollar for international trade settlements. And so when Trump came in, he discovered that America is in trouble. That America has 37 trillion in debts. America today has 37 trillion in debts. Anytime you hear government shut down, that the American government wants to shut down, they are talking about borrowing more money. American government shut down means we want to borrow more money. So America depends on borrowing money. They are involving themselves in deficit budgeting, deficit financing, which they don't have the resource, they don't have the money. They budget to borrow. So when you are budgeting to borrow or spending money to borrow or spending the money you don't have, you are borrowing money to survive. It means that you don't have money. You are in trouble. That is what has happened to America. And do you know America doesn't have any high-speed train like you have in China? America don't have any high-speed train. They don't have it. And also, they have 9.1 trillion infrastructure problem. America has 9.1 trillion infrastructure problem, according to Fortune.com. Plus other problems, which we shall not enumerate in this lecture. But America is no longer the America it was 40 years ago, 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago. America is no longer the country it was. Things have changed. The country is in trouble. And when the previous administration was there, nobody, is talking about this. They were there, giving money to Ukraine, sponsoring this and that, and wasting money until the arrival of Trump. And what has Trump done? Trump introduced this tariff war. So anytime you hear about this tariff war against India, against Syria, Laos, Switzerland, Algeria, Europeans, everywhere, tariff war, he's trying to save the country because the country is in trouble. And many countries are exporting into America. They are exporting because American economy, American people, the money is still there floating that they can use to buy your products. So when you are buying your products, you are making money in your country. So those exporting goods into the country are those being taxed in this tariff war. Because even the German government depends on the cars they are selling in America. Even the French government depends on the wine and spirits that are selling in America. And so many of them. And that is why you're having these tariff wars. Another means that Trump is trying to save America is by cutting down on the money they are spending in Ukraine. You no longer hear Congress passing billions for Ukraine. Instead, he wants the Europeans to pay for the weapons that they are using to fight in Ukraine. Because the arrangement before Trump came under NATO is that America is the one funding everything under NATO before Trump came. But now Trump said, no, we are not going to continue with this arrangement. This war in Ukraine is European war. So you fight it, you buy our weapons. And now he's selling the weapons to them and making money out of it. Another means that Trump is trying to save the fallen American empire is the Department of Government Efficiency. You have heard this, called DOGE, the one formerly headed by Elon Musk. It was tasked to save the country $1 trillion in waste and expenses. That's why he was cutting down so many things, cutting down so many departments, and people were shouting and crying, because the country is in trouble. They are trying to see how to make the country to be able to come back to its glory, to come back to having money to pay for all these expenses that they're making, all the 800 military bases, all the wars they are sponsoring here and there, and other expenses, other, expenses that other programs they have, social programs they have for their people. They're looking for money. And then Trump also removing illegal immigrants. And about 2 million have been removed as we speak today. And what we are saying is, or what we are asking is, will Trump succeed? And our answer is that he will succeed as long as he is in office. If he leaves office, we don't know what will happen. The next president may decide to change his policies. But for now, this is all he is doing to see if he can save the American empire. Because the American empire is in trouble and people are moving away from the dollar. The BRICS are moving away from the dollar. Many countries that hold their treasury bills are selling off their treasury bills. And the dollar is being depreciated, is falling in value as we speak. So the country is in trouble. A country that has about 7 trillion debts, has $7 trillion debts, have no high-speed trail, have a lot of infrastructural deficits, about 9.1 trillion infrastructure deficits. If you drive along many of the roads, you can see how bad some of the roads are, and so many other problems. And that is why Trump is doing what he's doing. And so we are saying you have to know that the American empire is in trouble and Trump is trying to save it. So everything we want you to take away from this lecture is for you to know that America is an empire, but now it is in trouble and Trump is trying to save it. And the question is, will he succeed? And that question we are answering at Nkola Mahadum Wisdom University is that yes, as long as he is in office. But when the next president comes, the new president might change all this Caesar approach to solving the problem. Because the problem has to be solved. Because if not, America will continue to be in trouble until the problem is solved. And with this, we shall bring it to this lecture to an end. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a very, very nice day. Thank you. Bye-bye.